a flip is a lot to work around versus a new construction. You have an open, clean slate. I have Airbnb PTSD. That was a lot. What is all this money and all of these things for if your relationships are crap?
This is the Investing RN podcast, and we are joined today by Jacqueline Torres out of the great state of Florida. So background in nursing. Oh, Georgia. Sorry.
We just talked about
I thought you said, I heard Florida because I had the things on. All right. So you're in Georgia? That's even better than Florida.
Very much.
Is it?
I mean, I think so because I live here, but I mean, Florida has its perks.
You posted something. I was like, I think I didn't know where the city was, but it sounded like a Florida city. It was like Alapatchee or something.
Oh,
like that.
Appalachie.
Like
yeah.
Appalachie. So that's
Yes.
Georgia. Okay. All right. Take two. Georgia. See, you should have just left it, Josh.
Well, I mean, we don't have to cut that out. It's kind of
No, we'll leave it. All right. Take two. This is the Investing RN podcast. I'm Colin, your host today, joined with Josh as usual. And we got Jacqueline Torres out of the great state of Georgia, not Florida. So background in nursing was, you've been a nurse for about 5 years. You did a little bit of med surg. Sounds like you got bored with that, which seems to be common for a lot of people in the med surg area. Then did medical ICU for a little bit. And now you are, as you refer to yourself, a PACU princess. And it sounds like that was a bit of a strategic move to open up your bandwidth to be able to take on some other things that you're doing outside of the hospital, which we totally understand, especially seeing as how you're in real estate. That's our little background as well. So we're excited to have you and get into this today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I mean, any other highlights of your nursing career that you'd like to touch on before we get into some other things?
I mean, not really. I started as a COVID nurse. So, I mean, that was my baseline. So then slowly moved into normal nursing, which was a big shock for me when people live and are not dying everywhere. And then families coming in and all of the rules and policies coming back. So that was a little annoying. But I mean, not really. I don't really have I think once I kind of shifted a little bit into real estate, I became extremely obsessive and I kind of just was like, okay, I'm going to go to work, do my things, check the boxes. But my goal and my vision is real estate. So I really submerged myself completely in real estate.
It's interesting because I guess if you come into nursing during COVID, I think we've had this idea that in a lot of ways, it was just this terrible introduction into nursing. But then there were some things like JACO was gone. There was no, people coming around checking to see if your water bottle had a lid on it, and no family members. I mean, I'm an advocate for family members with patients in the hospital, but it can be a little extra work for you. So yeah, that's an interesting take on that.
Yes. I mean, it was bad, but I think there was a moment where when I was being trained, it was like, this is what it is right now. You either accept it or you're going to cry about it. So that was just kind of my baseline. This is what we do.
So at what point did you start thinking to yourself, I want to do real estate, or was it just, I want to do anything else?
Or how did you find it?
Well, no. So there was a shift in my home dynamic. My husband had always been the primary breadwinner. I worked just for the kids and the fun and the shopping. And then that changed. So we had to find another solution. Even though I made good money, that's a big constraint from going from the stay-at-home mom that now went to nursing school and now is the primary provider for the house. So we had some money left after his business went down. And he's like, we need to find something to put this in to allow to cash flow to help with expenses and all the things. So that's how we kind of deep dived. Well, I deep dived. He was still figuring his life out, but started listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast every single morning on my way to work, and then slowly just went from there.
So going from stay-at-home mom to the primary breadwinner in the state of Georgia, what's nursing pay like for you?
With ICU diff, it's about $50 I was being paid. It wasn't, it was okay, but it was a big constraint because we have kids in sports and we have 4 children, and I never really even thought about the future. I was like, oh, this is always my play money because my husband pays all the bills. And things change. COVID hit businesses and all of a sudden everything shifted.
What business was he in?
So he's originally from Mexico. So he had avocado farms and businesses in Mexico. He also invested in like really small like paint groups here, but our main thing was our farms. And then when the Trump administration came and it changed the exchange rates of what we can export avocados for, it basically made it like not even profitable or worth it to even continue to export them at that time. So it's a lot of money to maintain these farms, and it just was not producing after that.
So that was Trump 1.0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because now fast forward, we're in 2025. We're in 2.0. So, well, and I think that is interesting because it's, I think like the buzz thing right now has been these tariffs and getting away with like, taxes and all that stuff. But there's always two sides to the story. So it sounds like for all of us who are paying these high taxes, we're like, oh yeah, tariffs, like get rid of the income tax and all that. But obviously there's the other side of the story. So that's something to consider as we're like going through all this. But I guess having experienced what he did with his business going under and you being a part of that, now being back or now being working and primarily taking care of the family, were you guys nervous to go out into this next venture of real estate, having already had, I guess, a failed business?
I was, because I've always been the like very secure, analytical, like I need to know A to Z in order for me to move because I like strategy and analyzing. He is very much, let's go for it and let's try it and let's see how it goes and kind of figure it out. That gives me a lot of anxiety, which I've learned to do now that as building and all of that, I've learned that mindset is very hindering sometimes. But he's very much, you do some research and let's go for it. But I was like, this is the little bit that we have left. So we have to be strategic and I have to learn. I have to take a class. I have to do all this. And he was like, okay, you do that and tell me when to move.
So kind of basing on the changes in regulations that kind of put your avocado business under, what type of regulations are you looking for now that you might be a little bit more aware of that could potentially ruin a business here if in the US?
Like a US based business?
Yeah. Is there anything similar to what you had to go through with your previous business that could affect your current business?
I mean, the problem was that like everybody in Mexico was affected, not people here. Like we were making more money. The country was making more money, but he wasn't, and he was losing lots of money. So he had to kind of shift and be like, all right. And mind you, he's not native, like from America. So I don't think he even saw himself like being a real estate investor. He was just like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I'll give someone my money. He used to be the money person. I'll give someone my money, let them do that. And I'm like, no, we have to do this. Like, we have to learn. You have to educate. So that was a big thing, like a big, like honestly, like a marital thing to navigate between the both of us.
Well, and I think that marital thing is huge because that's, I don't know if you know our dynamic, but Josh and I are brother-in-laws. And so I'm married to his sister and that's our business. It's the three of us. So obviously there's some family dynamics going on there, not between Josh and I.
Me and Colin have marital issues all the
time. Yeah. We have a lot of problems. No, usually Josh and I, it's like sunshine and roses, but like, it's tough running a business with your spouse because like those problems come into your marriage. And then it's like, how do you separate that? How do you have dinner with your family without just talking about business all the time? So that's definitely a huge thing that we found challenging. But before I move on, I'm just kind of curious because like I would imagine that after what happened with his original business during Trump 1.0, you guys weren't necessarily huge Trump fans. Would that be fair to say?
Not necessarily. I mean, we understand because we live here. I mean, it benefits Americans, but he was not a fan. And I mean, because it affected the whole dynamic of the country as well. A lot of farmers, avocado is the most profitable. Is it a fruit, vegetable? The fruit. Right? I don't know. I don't know.
Technically, it's a fruit, but like
right?
nobody's eating it like a fruit. Everybody's eating it as a veg. It's green. It's a vegetable.
It's the most profitable in the whole country. It's known that if you have these farms, you have money. And then when all of that happened, where Mexicans would rather like take the fruit and just leave it on the side of the street and give it away than to bring it to America to kind of like protest the high rates, they were like, all right, well, we're going to create the need. And that didn't work. Like Trump is ballsy, he doesn't care. Then a lot of people just was like, all right, this is not worth it anymore. It's too much money to keep maintaining. I mean, it takes about 3 years for a tree to even grow and for it to be fruitful. And we were like right at the second year of this farm, and it was supposed to be a very juicy year for us, and it wasn't. So it is what it is.
So that was 1.0. Now we're in 2.0, and what is it? I don't even know how many years. I guess 5 years later. Now you guys are investing in real estate.
Right.
So has that changed any of the way you feel about some of the policies that he's implementing?
Yeah, I mean, because whatever he's doing over there no longer affects us, and he's definitely pro business owner, pro tax saving, pro strategies on, I hate to say it, but like avoid paying taxes in a legal way. So
you can say it. We allow that kind of we allow that kind of speech on this podcast.
Okay, I mean, so like now that he's shifted and is like, yeah, like, you know, I hope he does good things for us, because I don't want to pay 37% after we sell this house. Like, what are we going to do in taxes? Yeah. So yeah, but that's definitely shifted. It took him a while, but we're here now.
Well, and I think that's the thing, like with politics, and especially once you get into business.
Yeah.
Like for us, we're usually just looking at, okay, what's going to say, where are we going to find the most tax savings? I mean, one of the strategies we use is the cost segregation studies and the bonus depreciation, which had gone down to what, 40%, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's 40% this year, phasing out. Hopefully it doesn't phase out. I know he's working on bringing some of the original stuff back, so we'd love to see that come back to 100%.
Yeah. So it's like you kind of pick and choose, you know, what benefits you, and that's right. I think just kind of the nature of it, but yeah. So it sounds like you start educating yourself with Bigger Pockets. You were the analysis paralysis type person more, it sounds like.
Yes. Like I have to know A to Z to make a move. And then I like slowly went to like a meetup, right? I almost didn't get out the car because I was like, what am I doing here? I don't have any properties, but this is what the podcast say to do. So I went to a meetup. I was like, felt so incompetent. Just, I don't know why. It's a perfectionism quality of me. Like I have to know all the things in order to feel qualified in the room. But yes, like not everybody in real estate is super smart. They just have more. I don't want to say curse words here, but they just have more, I don't care, like, let's just move kind of attitude. And that's what makes them great. So went from there. And we didn't have, I don't know what it was. I mean, the gods in the sky were just not working for us. So the little bit of money that we had, he like invested in this paint company. He invested it in like doing this contractor group. Everything he tried just didn't work. So then we didn't have a lot of money, and we started arbitraging in Airbnb, because that's what they said. If you don't have money, just arbitrage your property and cash flow it and make some money. And that's how I was like, all right, that's, you know, I could do that. Like we can just rent out a property, kind of test it out and see how that goes. That's what we did.
Can you explain that process a little more? Because I don't know that we've actually talked much about Airbnb arbitrage on here.
Oh, arbitrage. So it's basically, if you have a home for rent, I will come to you and say, hey, Colin, I want to rent your home. And the purpose of the rental would be to Airbnb it. The reason why you should rent to me is because I will make sure that your property stays in pristine condition, because my business depends on your house being perfectly abled. We will do repairs. It will be cleaned constantly throughout the week. And we're willing to pay, you know, maybe $100, $150 more a month for allowing us to do this. And so instead of buying a property, we just rented it, paid a deposit, rented it, and we furnished it with business credit, which I learned through the podcast and YouTube, and just very little money out of pocket. And we started cash flowing in Airbnb.
Yeah, I think some of the podcasts I've heard before, the landlords were always really hesitant to rent to and somebody who was going to arbitrage. But I mean, breaking it down the way you just did right there, it would kind of make sense for me as a landlord to want to rent it to you. I'm making more money. You're going to keep it cleaner than probably it would have been without it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think as long-term buy and hold investors, that's what we do. But I always thought, I wouldn't want anybody doing that. But I guess that's a good point. Yeah, because I mean, you just put some random tenant in there. There's really no
right.
You don't know them. There's no motivation necessarily for them to keep it clean. I mean, you would hope that they would maintain a clean house, but like the way you put it, there is a motivation on your end to keep it clean because your business depends on it.
And we would do all the repairs throughout the year. We would never call you for like small dent in the wall or this faucet doesn't work. We won't call you for that. We'll just fix it ourselves because our business depends on it.
So we have an empty.
So that was like
we have an empty unit in Wisconsin. If you'd like to Airbnb it, we will allow it.
I have Airbnb PTSD. That was a lot. That was a lot.
So why is that?
Oh, because I was self-managing. So people are very needy. They forget their basic human skills when they go into Airbnbs. Like, where's the light switch? Or the internet isn't working. Well, did you try unplugging it? I mean, oh my God. And so and then I was working in the ICU. So I couldn't afford like somebody to manage it for me because we have no money. So I'm intubating / answering guest messages, and they'll be like, oh, I think it's not very professional that you don't answer promptly. And then I would like low-key guilt trip them. And I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm also an ICU nurse and I had an emergency with a patient. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's okay. But it was like crazy just managing people and then managing a team. I learned a lot. I learned so much. It was needed for the journey, but the tears were a lot too.
So how many arbitrage units did you work your way up to?
Just one. We had one. Okay. We went big because we did one in Orlando. It was a 7-bedroom, 5-bed house with a pool and this big, I did my analysis and it was supposed to be good, and it is good. It's just so oversaturated in Orlando. Everybody and their mother has an Airbnb, so the competitiveness wasn't there. What they would charge for a 7-bedroom in Orlando is not the same like in Atlanta. You pay $1,000 a night for a 7-bedroom. Over there, it's very seasonal. Everybody has an Airbnb. It was good. I mean, we weren't in the negative. We made some money, but not as much as we anticipated.
Not worth the headaches.
No. Our landlord was actually really upset that we didn't want to renew. She loved how everything was so pretty and furnished, and to see her home on a listing, she was really proud of that. And she was like, please, I'll lower the rent. I'm like, no, don't tempt me, because I just felt like a years of hard work was just gone after we decided to let it go. And we self-furnished. We stayed up like 4 days in a row with a toddler and a kid and just worked and built every single piece of furniture and just set it all up by ourselves in 4 days.
Yeah, that's
we're a little crazy.
Yeah,
a little crazy.
So that, I mean, it sounds like there was somewhat of a proven concept there, because even though you didn't make a ton of money, you were making some money on it, and it was a lot of work. But once you start scaling, then you can bring in the VAs and whoever to help you out. So why was it that you didn't go that route, or how did you find your way into your next, venture in real estate?
So our lease was up in December. By like October, we kind of like knew. I did the numbers. I had my spreadsheets for every month, and after expenses, utilities are a lot more expensive in Florida than Georgia. I also had this pool. So, I would charge more for the heated, but my light bill was about $400 to $600 a month. Then you got to pay your cleaning fee and all of the things. And I'm like, for this amount of work, it's just not projecting what I thought it would be. And there's nothing I could really change. Like, even if we were to make it more luxurious, the numbers just weren't there for the daily rate. So we had just kind of decided just to leave it. And then I saw this ad on Instagram. I was just scrolling And it was like, oh, learn how to build houses and make six figures. And I was like, and it was like these guys in Atlanta. And I was like, let me see. So like I clicked and I messaged them. I was like, hey, I've never like flipped before. I've never like, do you think I can still attend the class? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, okay. And it wasn't much. It was $3,000 for the both of us. It was me and my husband. Yeah, for a weekend. So I was like, this is like pretty cool. And I kind of looked them up. You know, I'm a researcher, so make sure they weren't like scamming people. And I was like, okay, well, this looks good. And we went from there. We went to that class, and I was like, we're doing this. We are doing this.
All in.
Yeah, I didn't know what waited for me, but I was like, I'm going. We're doing this.
And when was this?
This was 2023 in about November. So right before our lease was up with the Airbnb.
Okay. So this is, I mean, not even 2 years ago.
Mm-mm.
All right. So
yeah.
So I guess from the class, then what? Walk us through how you kind of actually got into it and started with the new construction.
So in this class, so my mentor to this day, I love him. His name is Stacy Blackwell. He's a licensed GC. He teaches you first day in the class and is like, okay, these are the steps to building a house. Mind you, I don't know anything about equipment, I didn't know what a trim was. I was like, what is that word? What is that word? I was just lost in the sauce because I didn't understand anything he was talking about. But I was like, I'm smart. I'm going to go home and I'm going to study. And then I knew all the concepts. So again, the topic was the money. We didn't have $60,000 to buy a lot. So the biggest pivot to like real estate was me learning how to raise capital. I don't know if you guys know about Amy Majuri. She's like big on raising capital in the real estate world. And I had kind of seen her. And of course, seeing a woman in real estate, I'm like, oh, she's badass. I like her. You know, she'd be like, I'll teach you. And I'm like, more money to be spent. And I was like, you know what? We got to do it. And her mentorship was a lot cheaper than what it is now. And I put it on a credit card. I closed my eyes and I pressed submit because I was like, oh my God, this is a lot of money. And within 30 days, I had raised the $50,000 that I needed to buy our first lot and get all the things that we needed to do.
So as somebody who's not so good at raising capital, what are some of the biggest tips that you learned from that course so I don't have to go spend the $50,000?
Oh, it's not that much, but so it's very strategic. It's a lot about mindset and then showing your investors how you're going to secure their capital, right? We do lien positions, promissory notes, something that secures their money and ties it to the property. So they teach you a lot of those things, a lot about how to reach out to people, how to navigate conversations. And everybody has their own way is what I've learned. You can try and do it like Amy, but we all have our own niche about us and what people like and don't like, and learning to listen to what people are wanting. Some people don't even want cash flow. They just want something else. Like what do they want, and do our interests align? So, and that's information, but you have to implement. So the implementing was tough and lots of no's, but I'm a little obsessive, like I said. So I was like, I'm getting this. I will get this.
So what if you get the yes and then don't actually get the money?
Oh,
so I feel like
that's happened.
I feel like I talk to a lot of people and they want to. It's like, yes, but I also don't want to be that little dog just kind of nipping at their heels all the time. Like, oh, where's the money you said you want to invest?
So you'll get like a verbal commitment. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And then they'll like, when it's time for the deal, they'll be like, no.
I just never, I don't know. I guess so. I hear the yes and I see them and I'll mention it again. They're like, oh yeah, sounds good. All sounds good. But there's no like actual, because we use a online portal and I'll send them the invite and all that stuff, do all that, and it just never happens.
Do you have like a nurturing system? So what I do,
he does not. I can say that he does not nurture me well.
I am the nurturing system.
I mean, and sometimes that's good. My biggest investors tend to be more personal relationship that we've just been on calls. But I do have all of my people on a marketing list. I use MailChimp. It's like $20 a month. And I'll just send them monthly updates of all of the things we're doing. And even though they might have been a no months ago, as they get to know you and as they get to see the progress and then as they get to see things turn into a yes sometimes. And then you can create some anticipation and be like, oh my God, I have this deal. I have a lot of people lined up, but I thought of you. I just wanted to see if you would like to get into this deal. We have great returns coming, blah, 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 blah. And just be like, okay. And that if you don't, that's fine. We'll let you know if there's something available for you next time.
I think that's a big part of it, because I know initially when we started raising capital, and to be fair, Josh has raised a decent amount of money for us and has done well with it. But I think a big problem is when you're raising the money because you need it, like it's like almost like people can sense like the desperation versus like what you said, where it's like, hey, like we got this deal. I think it'd be good for you. If you're interested, cool. If not, whatever. And I think then people are like, wait a second. So there's this deal so good that like you don't even really need my money because you got other things. So I think as we've gone through it, we've built on that, and we are now coming to it from like a place of strength rather than weakness and desperation. Like, please give us your money. We're about to close in like a week. Like,
yeah.
It's never been that bad.
Close.
But this is
we always have like plans in place. I think the other thing too is just like, and I think for you coming into a new market, which was, development, not having any background experience in this, and then going out and raising money, there's like a confidence in the ability to get the return that you're promising these people. And I guess with all your background and your due diligence and everything, I'm sure that helped you. But what did you do, I guess, to prepare or to let yourself know, to give yourself the confidence that you would be able to get these people the returns you're promising, and you're not going to go lose their $50,000?
So when I pitch, I don't even like to say I pitch, I just educate, because a lot of people that have invested with me, they haven't invested before. So you educate them on the returns that they're going to get. And I also do have the sheet where I have every single job of what is going to be required for this, like already mapped out. Of like, this is how much my flooring, this is my tiling. I may not have experience, but the person on my team has 20 years of experience. I may not have experience, but the attorney that's going to do our paperwork has been a real estate attorney for 15 years. I may not have experience, but the realtor that pulled these comps from the market that I can accurately analyze these properties has been a realtor for 20 years. So you want to highlight your team. And that's something that Amy taught us too, was don't be, there's dumb people out here raising money with nothing. You're presenting facts. You're highlighting your team of experts, and there's really a win-win. And hey, this is how I am going to secure you. And then worst case, if the market dips and I lose 50, 60 grand, what will happen is I will make less, but you will continue to make the same return. So I am very open and honest, and I show them the spread. Because I'm very conservative, I made sure that I got deals that had a very big spread on it. So if I make a lot of mistakes, they'll still be paid.
Yeah. I mean, I guess now would be a good time to we had like some questions lined up as far as like the strategy for new builds. So I guess just starting off, like why new builds versus remodels, like versus flips?
Well, again, I just went to the class, and
that was the class. I didn't take the flipping class. I took the new build class.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and the thought of it, especially to a lot of investors, like I've done a little speaking engagements here and all of that, and they're like, I just really want to build up to it. I was overconfident, and I've learned a lot of lessons throughout this past year. We bought a lot and a flip at the same time because I had so much money that I was raising. And I was like, oh, the flip, we'll just do the things, we'll add, and, the new construction. The flip is 10 times harder and is my problem child because in every single step of the way, there is, oh, but this is happening. Oh, but this wall. Oh, but this plumbing. Oh, but this electric. Oh, but and I love her. I call them all hers, but a flip is a lot to work around versus a new construction. You have an open, clean slate. There is not unexpected costs coming up. I mean, only if like lumber went out a crazy amount, but that's why you have your contingency budget. But there is nothing in your way preventing you from building, or a structure preventing you from moving things. It's just a clean slate, and you could just poof, 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 go up, and nothing is stopping you except for inspections. A flip it's a lot. Once you like learn how to develop the land and learn how to do with the like work with the counties and fill in like all of their requirements, it's game over from there. You can just build up as fast as you can. Versus a flip, I just felt like every single week there's something new, there's something we have to overcome, and it's very annoying.
Yeah.
So with the rise in construction costs, what does that look like for you, since you are doing more new build versus flipping?
We just have to buy cheaper land. I find better deals in land. We make money when we buy the land. The goal is to make six figures on each new construction. And it also does help that my husband's Mexican. So we get our labor at a different price than American people would. That's just the name of the game. And we have a couple people on our team that we pay by the day. So they're with us every day versus having to pay thousands of dollars for that cabinet job. So we use them for everything.
That seems like that's the way to go right there.
Have the hookup.
So I need a Mexican wife, obviously. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Nicole, if you're not listening to this
Polish
one,
wife is going to be upset. I was going to say, I have a Mexican wife and it hasn't helped me in that way, so don't worry.
Oh, man.
she's pretty useless.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but useless in terms of hooking it up with cheap labor. But
Yes.
so, okay, so when you're looking for land, what are you looking for?
So it comes down to the area, the comps in the area. So like my first build, the one that is coming back to the market today, we bought that land for $40,000. We're putting her on the market for about $509. Our anticipated was $530, but with rates and market being a little crazy, we're going down to $509. So a rule of thumb, it's not really precise, but like what I try to do is stay in the 10% range of my ARV. It's not concrete because it also depends on how big I have to build. You can be in the neighborhood, and the houses are about, 2,000 to 2,500. So you got to build what's around, and does it make sense now versus I may have that same land price, but the houses in the neighborhood are 4,000, 5,000 square feet. Am I going to make the same amount of money? The only thing that has to budge is the land. We can only budge labor and everything so much, but it has to be the land. So it has to be at the right price.
And then when you're using like the kind of like day laborers, I guess, but is there like like a licensed contractor kind of overseeing things, or how do you set that up? Or if you can't say, that's fine.
There is on paper.
Or are you guys doing all the permits and everything as like owner builders, or how do you work around?
No. So since it's an investment property, usually down here they do require a licensed GC. So there is a licensed GC on paper.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes.
Every step of the way we're being inspected anyway. And so for things like electrical and plumbing, we just don't mess with. We do get licensed people because they have to pull their own permits. But other than that, there's nothing we can't really do.
We ran into that. We did a flip, our famous 2-year flip. And it was, the problem with us is we didn't use like a big notable, or we didn't use like a big construction company, like a licensed. I mean, he was a licensed. I think he was a licensed contractor. We don't know.
We were looking for inexpensive labor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
sometimes that's expensive because now you have to repair.
It's very and that's what we ran into when the time came to sell. The buyer came in with their inspections, and it was like, who did this plumbing? And we were like, what? Yeah, no, it's cool. And so we had to have a licensed plumber come in.
That's cool.
Yeah, but we had like this license. But I mean, this guy literally, I think I went one time and I was like, hey, man, what's going on with the drywall? He's like, oh, no, it's cool, dude. Don't worry. My mom's coming out this weekend and she's going to help me finish it up. I was like, dude, you're like 45. How old is your mom? Like hanging drywall and stuff.
Oh, my God.
But that was
part of the game too is trying people out, losing money, and finding another person and paying again. And oh yeah, that's part of it.
And I think for us, the lesson we learned was we would just go with the bigger companies that have a better reputation and the big crew that can get it done a lot faster, because time is obviously money, and a 2-year flip is not. I think we ended up breaking even on that deal, and which was fine. I mean, we didn't lose money and we learned a lot. We have not flipped anything since then. So if that kind of tells you what the experience was like. But yeah, so, and then as far as like the construction costs and like keeping the prices where you're at, you're saying that when you're estimating expenses, because it's all brand new, it's a lot easier to, so when you're projecting expenses for a new build, are you hitting pretty close to what your projections are when you're finishing?
Well, we just did one, so that's our only experience. And then we have the flip edition. For the most part, yes, it's a little scary. We just had like a lot of people of the same specialty come and quote us. And it'd be like, all right, I got 5 people for plumbing, 5 people for electric, 4 people for framing, 5 people. And then I would just like put them all together and be like, all right, this guy is kind of good. I like his communication. Like, let's go with him. So we don't just kind of guess, especially new. My husband would guess. I don't guess. I spent the time just analyzing and bringing people. And he also brought people in and had people be like, well, no, like that guy's charging you way too much. Like this and this happened. And you can tell the way they talk, if they like know their stuff sometimes they BS you too, but it's been pretty good. And then we estimated a little bit higher on some things. And then of course our contingency little bracket for over expenses that we may not anticipate.
And what are you seeing as in terms of the price per square foot on the new construction?
Oh, for us, because my husband like self-manages and does everything, we're about 110-ish for like a basic medium grade, not too expensive, like a medium grade, like the one I have on the market right now. The one that we're about to start, it's probably going to be a little bit higher, about like 130, 135. Just because of the neighborhood and it's an HOA and we have a lot of requirements. So it just depends on the grade and how luxurious we're wanting to do it.
Gotcha.
I feel like that's still pretty good. Here in Wisconsin, I think last time they were saying it's like over 200 at this point, and it's not for extreme luxury. That's just kind of the normal house.
That's 135 with the GC. A lot of their times they'll charge their fee because they do work, like they manage, they're calling, it's their time. They put their fee in that square footage sometimes. This is one something without my husband paying himself. This is just straight work and material.
That makes sense.
So, and then I guess I want you to walk us through the whole deal, just like as far as like what the land costs and all the building and all that time wise, but also I had a question and it's coming back to me.
Okay.
Well, just walk us through that. Like what did it, you bought the land, you said for 40,000. So then what were your building costs? What were you anticipating selling it for? Now, what do you have it? Just like the whole thing, start to finish, time wise, everything.
So we bought the land for 40,000, plans, permits, including everything in our SOW. And something I didn't mention. So for this first project, we also, the mentor that taught us this class, I did pay him a fee to guide me through the process. So I'm not going to talk about the fee, but because he still teaches. So I did pay him a fee to walk us through the process, to kind of hold my hand to everything and as much involvement as we wanted. So just so people can know, like, we didn't just kind of set up and be like, all right, we're just going to do this. Like, it was a big help. It was an investment, but I would have paid every single day for that education versus trying to figure out myself and lose a lot of money. So 40,000 for that. And then we're about 290 for permits, construction, materials, inspection, everything, 290,000, his fee. So we're about 3, with no interest or no closing costs or anything. So we're about 320, 3 something with his fee, and she's going to be on the market for 509.
Nice. And then And then did you have to pay his fee up front, or is that built in?
Throughout the project, I did.
And as far as your investors, how are you setting up? Like, are you paying them a monthly payment on their investment, or are they making all their money at the end when you sell?
At the end. So for this project, the only private money lender I have is one person. And honestly, she is a long-term friend. She knows us. So I just have her on a promissory note with an interest annualized, right? And then I funded the project 100% with a hard money loan.
Okay. And that gets paid back at the end when you sell?
No. So I had to raise money for my holding costs, something I did not know about. I did have to raise money for so construction loans are a little bit different than a flip rehab. A hard money loan will give you all the money, but you're only being charged on the interest on the money used. So you have to submit receipts, and then they'll refund you. And then they start charging you monthly payments on the funds that are being used. So the faster you go, the faster we can, stop paying interest. But I did have to raise that money, and I have to secure them with a piece of land that I bought with my HELOC. Okay. So if I don't pay them back, they take my land.
And what are you guys looking to make after you've paid your investors and everything, if it sells for what it's listed for?
Mm-hmm. After I had my spreadsheet, but I had it for like 530 because that's what we kind of anticipated. I think after everything, we're going to make about 95,000 after paying holding costs, realtor fees, interest, just all of the things we've had to pay. I think about 95,000.
Yeah, that's not bad. And I think the question I was going to ask earlier was that, you guys were in a place where you needed the money. So obviously I know you're working and that's supplementing your income, but the difference with this strategy is you're making more money, but it's delayed. So has that been, well, I'm sure you're just like waiting for that thing to sell. Much. So has that been difficult?
Yeah, I have no idea. Yes, because we took a little bit longer than we anticipated. I secured my private money lender for a year was our agreement. And we are about 15 months. And I don't like to say one thing and have a contract and then be out of bounds of contract, but she was very understanding. So that was okay. That was a whole other anxiety thing there. But yes, delayed because even if the project has not sold, I'm still paying interest on that construction loan. And so I made sure that when I did raise this money that I needed for my holding costs, I had more than enough so that I'm not sitting here months, 14, 15, like how am I going to pay my interest loan? And it's a whole thing if you don't pay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I guess then once you get that first one, the idea would be to just kind of keep these things rolling. So it's like now you've got this chunk of money that you can live on until the next one. And especially if you're raising private money, you're not needing that money to invest in the next deal. That's something we've run into. We have a decent sized portfolio and we're about 5 years into it. And, somebody the other day I was talking to them, they're like, why are you still working? And I was like, well, because the business isn't really making that much money because we're reinvesting all the money we're making right back into the business. And
that's our plan too.
Yeah. So you guys you'll reinvest the money that you're making. Is that for tax purposes to avoid paying taxes on these gains?
So I'm completely honest because this will be the first year that we win, like actually sell. Our flip is about to be done as well. I have no idea what I'm doing. I have a tax strategist call next week with 2 people because I need someone to tell me what to do with the gains and not to do and where to move. Because a lot of my investors have pretty much told me like, hey, when you sell, don't give it back to me. Just put my principal and my interest and put it in another deal. So I'm like, I need to know what move I need to make. So I don't know what I'm doing on that part.
But for your personal money, I guess, because you mentioned.
Yes, we can't spend it. I mean, I know that there's going to be a big tax thing if we just go out and try to keep it. Like we have to be strategic and I guess invest in like a long term to create loss. I don't know about that yet. I really don't judge me for it, but I just had to focus on one thing at a time. And like I said, I have my call next week, but most likely they're going to tell me like, all right, well, this is what's going to happen with scenario A, B, or C. And I need to make sure I know what to do when we close. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. What would you suggest?
Well, I guess I think it depends, because that was my next question, is like, was the plan for what you're doing to replace your nursing income so that you can get out of nursing, or is this just a supplemental thing that you want to do on the side for however long?
It originally it was, but after everything that I've learned throughout this year, I think I had very optimistic views on real estate and not really factoring how hard it is and how quick you can go from winning to losing, which we haven't lost, but like, I think I'm going to like keep working until we get to a place where we can be like, all right, like the cash flow or, you know, this new strategy that we're doing is pretty good. And then quit, but we're not there yet. So I that was my dream. I was like, oh, I'll sell a couple of houses, make 6 figures, and I'll quit. No, that's not a very strategic move,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and I think that's something we've found too, where it's like we listened to all the bigger pockets and got into this thing thinking like, oh yeah, we're going to do real estate in 2 years. We're going to be like sitting on the beach, sipping Mai Tais and just like golfing, whatever. And now we're 5 years in and it's like, oh wait, this is a lot harder than they made it sound, but it's still worth it.
It is very worth it.
Worth it.
Very.
Now we're doing 2 full-time jobs instead of just our healthcare jobs.
Nobody said it was a setup. I say it all the time. I was like, this was a setup. Like, I have a couple of nurse friends and some mentorships that I'm into, and they're like, girl, I've never been so stressed and overworked in my life. I'm like, okay, thank you. That's very validating. But once you know, now you know. Like, now you can't come back. You can't come back to just be a normal W-2 person.
Well, and I think the end goal is like, yeah, maybe you're not going to be able to retire in 2 to 5 years like you had thought getting into it. But the difference will be when you're 45, when you're 50, and all these people are still have another 15, 20 years of nursing that they have, bedside nursing that they have to do. And you are actually set up. And that's what I have to keep reminding myself, because there's times when I'm like, man, the nursing was great when I just worked 36 hours a week. We'd travel, we'd have fun. It was so easy. Like, why didn't we just keep doing that? But there was no end in sight. It was just, that would have been for the rest of my life, essentially, until you retire. And then maybe you're comfortable, maybe you're not.
I've navigated with those thoughts all this year. I'm like, why did I put myself through this? Like, why did I decide to be a badass? I could have just been a normal person. But no, it's worth it. I think it's like you said, the long-term game, right? Like, what are we doing? Like, what if I get injured? What if I'm old? What if I get sick? Like, I don't want to work. I don't want to have to work. I want to make that an option if I can, and live off we have a dream of buying land and creating a build community that we can just rent and live off. This is our dream, right? One day. So maybe when I get there, I won't have to work.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we're going to jump to our final 5. So the same 5 questions we ask everybody.
Okay.
All right. So number 1 is, what's the top financial resource that you found? Where do you go to educate yourself?
Conferences. I do a lot of, last year I do a lot of conferences, like the wealth conferences, WealthCon, the big Cody Sperber conference was a good one.
I've been to both of those.
Yeah, the Cody Sperber one was super good last year, and you learn so much about all the moves that people up there are making. I'm like, this is nice. And I think that conferences and just following people that are doing things that I'd like to do one day.
Have the conferences helped you more with strategy or mindset?
Or networking?
Mindset and networking, because I used to have this belief that, people that are extremely successful, they have something special about them, and they really don't. They just have this unbelievable grit, and they just don't give up, and they just do the hard things when people don't want to do it. And so I'm like, I can do that. I'm great. I just have to believe in myself a little. I could do that.
So the second question is, what advice would you give yourself as a new grad?
don't listen to people, because the reason I even started a med search was they were like, "Oh, you should go to med search." No, I was bored out of my mind, and I went to ICU and absolutely loved it. So don't listen to people.
All right.
Yeah, I love that one. All right, what excites you about the next 12 months?
Selling and paying all my investors back. I'm super excited about that. It's like a cloud that I just want to release. It's seeing how this plays out, paying everyone back, having now those little wins in my resume. Now I can be like, hey, I've done this and I've done this. Now instead of 100, give me the whole 500 you have in your 401k. But yes.
Yeah, it does add an element of added anxiety when you're dealing with other people's money. I mean, when you're dealing with your own money, there's enough anxiety as it is, but then when you get other people involved, it's just like you said, this cloud just over you all the time. Like, I got to get these people their money. I got to do right by them. So I could, yeah, we're going through a little bit of that. The fourth question is, how do you define success?
Success is different for everyone. I'm now defining success as always learning and all growing financially and all the things, but also valuing the relationships, like with my children, with my husband, having people that I can count on, relationships and quality of life. What is all this money and all of these things for if your relationships are crap? Or all the people you say you work for, like your family, you have nothing with them, or no nearness, no bond. So for me, that's what it is now, a little bit more.
Yeah, it's tough to maintain that as you're working full time and building a business, but it is important to keep in mind, because that's essentially who you're doing it for. So yeah, that's a tough part.
We won't take any of this to the grave, so might as well try to live life as well.
I'm just gonna have a really big grave.
It's like I'm taking all of it.
All right, last question is, what is the biggest financial mistake you've made, and what did you learn from it?
When we did have a lot more money, when my husband was making a lot more money, not educating ourselves about investing, about long-term vision, and just going to Disney 3 times a year and here and there, when we could have like built something but you don't know what you don't know, right? But I wish I would have known about investing for long-term vision and everything when we were a lot younger.
Yep. That's the common theme, just starting sooner.
Yeah.
But
it's okay.
But you're doing it now. Yeah. Yes. Well, thanks for joining us today. This is obviously, like I said, we always nerd out when we get to talk to other real estate investors, but so it's a lot of fun for us. But as far as your social media and everything, where can people find you?
So it's Jacqueline Torres _builds, JACQUELINE TORRES _builds BUILDS. I will try to be more active again. It's a lot of work to keep up with social media, but I will try.
And we'll put it in the show notes in case you didn't catch that spelling.
Okay. Perfect.
But yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you. It was nice to meet you guys.
You too.
All right. Bye.